Yes.
Yeah, I saw.
I'd like to call to order the June 7, 2016 meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Everybody please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Board Secretary, has this meeting been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act?
Yes, it has, Mr. McEnroe.
Then can I have a roll call?
Mr. Bowker.
Here.
Mrs. Bacco. Mr. Bashada.
Here.
Mrs. Bloom.
Here.
Mr. Sayak.
Here.
Mrs. DePinto.
Here.
Mr. Esposito.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mr. McEnroe.
I am present. I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second. Mr. Walsh.
Walsh.
Mrs. Bloom, Mr. Walsh, could you please read the resolution?
Whereas Section 80 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore it be resolved by the Board of Education of the Borough of Sayreville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of and the action upon the herein after specified subject matter. General nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Personnel, including but not limited to agenda items. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. This resolution shall take effect immediately. Mr. Bowker.
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco.
Yes.
Mr. Bashada.
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom.
Yes.
Mr. Sayak.
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto.
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
And Mr. McEnroe.
Yes, the board will go into executive. We'll reconvene at 7:30 for public.
Spoiled all my fun today.
Hurry up, Mrs. Bloom. Okay, I'd like to call to order the June 7, 2006 meeting, Sayreville Board of Education. Everybody please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can everybody please remain standing? Mr. Sayak?
Thank you, Mr. McEnroe. Actually 2 weeks ago, we lost a former member of the Sayreville Board of Education, Danny J. DiPaolo, who served the Board of Education for 43 consecutive years from 1963 until 2006, passed away. During his time, he built, many schools here as a school board member. During his time, he hired, you think over 43 years, there was one point where everyone working in the district was hired by Danny DiPaolo. And though he served through 43 years and adapted through those 43 years of changes that occurred in the district, he always remained true to people. He believed in people, he believed in the people in this district, and he believed in children and in supporting education for children. I'd like to have a moment of silence in memory of Danny J. DiPaolo for 43 years of service to the Sayreville Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sack. Mr. Board Secretary, has this meeting been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act?
Yes, it has, Mr. McEnroe.
Get a roll call vote, please. Roll call. We'll vote later.
Mr. Bowker.
Here.
Mrs. Bacco.
Here.
Mr. Bashada.
Here.
Mrs. Bloom.
Here.
Mr. Sayak.
Here.
Mrs. DePinto.
Here.
Mr. Esposito.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mr. McEnroe.
Present. Can you give us a short synopsis of the executive session, please?
In executive session this evening, the only item was personnel, including but not limited to agenda items.
Okay. Before we do the presentations, our student council representative, Mr. Christopher Bruce, is going to give us a little briefing about what's happening on campus.
Most recently, the seniors just got...
Use the mic.
There we go. Most recently, the seniors just got back from their Disney trip. Some of them at 9, but like me, at 2 o'clock in the morning this morning. Yeah, it was a rough flight. There was delays for maintenance issues, which was nice to hear. But all in all, the trip was a blast. It was probably one of my favorite high school memories, just being able to bond with everyone in my class, and Disney is just such a great place to be. Mr. Brown did an exceptional job at running the trip, making sure everything went smooth, everyone was where they needed to be. It was just all in all really great experience. And, next meeting, I'm going to be bringing the next Board of Education representative to introduce himself and get acclimated with, how everything works here.
Okay. You're looking forward to graduating
Very much.
and moving on.
Yes.
Excellent.
I'll
Mrs.
miss
Backo.
you guys.
Mrs. Backo, I know you had something you wanted to brief that Mr. Bruce was part of.
Yes. Before you leave, you had brought up a recommendation about senior exemptions and that we had stopped that practice of doing it. So we have a committee called the Education Council Committee, which is the board and the teachers. So we had brought it up at that meeting, and I'm sure you know Mrs. Sarah McGaw.
Yes.
She chairs the committee for the teacher side. She had, well, personally, she disagrees with it, so we'll point that out. But she did poll her colleagues, and they all said they were in agreement of doing, putting back the senior exemption. However, their recommendation was to do it at a score of 93 or above. And they also came back with another caveat with it. For AP exams, their recommendation to us was to have the exemption for everyone in AP, no matter what grade you are, to exempt them out of the AP exams, especially since we have now changed the policy almost requiring you to take the test. So I wanted you to know that we are looking into it, and the teachers have given their feedback. I don't know, it's 93 was what they came back with.
No, I appreciate that, and 93 is a fair score, somewhere around there. It's always been if you had an A in every quarter, from what I understood, and on the midterm. So it's just something good to do if a student gets an A on every exam quarter up until then, and then has that exemption for their last final.
And I did ask Mrs. McGaw why her colleagues thought that they should put the exemption back in and why at 93, and her answer was it would give an incentive for the student to work towards that 93. Do you think that that is a valid assessment?
I mean, hopefully the students would, want to score high regardless, but it's definitely something nice to reward students with, you get an A in every quarter and every exam. You could not take that final and still have that A as a final grade. But I'm sure it's, if someone had an 89, they'd be really striving to get that, or 92, trying to get that 93 to make sure that they didn't have to take that exam.
So we're looking at it for next year.
Thank you.
So you can tell your replacement that we actually do listen
Yes.
to the councils and act upon those recommendations. So with that, since this is Christopher's last meeting, and the position of the student liaison or representative of the Board of Education, it's actually, you're elected to that by your peers as a member of the student council position of leadership. And he came every meeting and talked to us about the events that are happening here, particularly on the high school on campus. So Chris, if you can come up. Yeah, obviously Chris is a senior, he's played football, he's going to be going to Rutgers Newark. And most impressive, and something that I admire, that he's enlisted in the Army National Guard, and I believe he's going to be an artilleryman. So the best thing is a good ear protection. You see, closest I've been, he's probably about the 10th or 11th individual that was in his position. And I can't remember anyone else who had made a recommendation that we really took a look at as a committee, the board curriculum, and looking actively and implementing this based on your suggestions. So this works, and that's what your replacement needs to know, that we can come up with valid things for the Board of Education to work, because it's about the students, and you're our stockholders, and we want to be able to respond to that. So with that, I have a plaque, and it's presented by the Sayreville Board of Education, Christopher Bruce. And it says, "In grateful recognition of his dedication to the Sayreville Board of Education, as the Sayreville Memorial High School Student Council Representative of 2015-2016. So on behalf of the Board of Education, it's my honor to present this to you. You should do nothing. Now we get to married parents. Mom, Dad, come on up.
Okay, I believe we have a few more presentations, Dr. Lab.
Yes, we do. At about this time every year, we have to report by state mandate our harassment, intimidation, and bullying data. So from period 1, that would be from July 1 through the end of December, we have not presented that to you yet. So I'm going to ask Ms. Reese to give a brief presentation on the harassment, intimidation, and bullying data from period 1. That would be from July 1 of 2015 through December 31st of 2015. We are now compiling the data for period 2, and that will be presented to you in the fall. Ms. Reese?
Okay, good evening, Mr. McEnone, members of the board, Dr. Labby, central office members, and members of the community. Okay, the EVV&V and substance abuse reporting system. This is, as Dr. Labby said, the report for period 1 for 15-16. Thank you. So the violence, vandalism, substance abuse, and HIB data needs to be reported to the community during a public BOE meeting at least twice each school year for the following periods. Period 1, July 1st to December 31st, reported during one of the following months, January through June. So we're just squeezing that in. And period 2, January 1st through June 30th, reported during one of the following months, July through December. It consists of incident category by schools and number of confirmed HIB incidents by schools. Thank you. So, as you see on the left column, it has the name of the school, the type of violence, vandalism, weapons, or substance abuse, and the district total across the bottom. So, the high school, violence 11, vandalism 1, weapons 0, substance abuse 10. The middle school, I'm going to go down now for violence. Middle school 0, UES 1, Eisenhower 3, Arlith 1, Truman and Wilson 0 for a district total of 16. Vandalism, the high school 1, middle school 0, UES 1, Eisenhower, Arlith, Truman, and Wilson 0 for a district total of 2. Weapons, the high school 0, the middle school 0, UES 1, and 0 for the rest of the elementary schools for a district total of 1. And substance abuse, 10 for the high school, 1 for the UES, and actually that should be 11 for the district total. Thank you. And for the HIB, that's the confirmed HIB incidents. In another report later, during the year, they'll have how many were reported, how many were investigated, and how many have been confirmed. But for the purposes of this report, this is just how many have been confirmed and how many the board decides that they're going, what the discipline is going to be. Okay, so the high school 3, middle school 5, UES and Eisenhower 0, Arlith 1, Truman and Wilson 0 for a district total of 9. That's really extremely, extremely a good rate for 6 months in the beginning of the year. But thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Excellent brief. That's excellent.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. Something else that our safety committees in each school are working on right now is, again, according to the anti-bullying statute, they also have to develop self-assessment scores. That is currently being done. That, along with the period 2 EVVRS and HIB data, has to be uploaded in July, and we'll present those assessment scores as soon as we have them, we upload them, and we receive them back from the Department of Education. Something that was spoken about during our last Board of Education meeting, it's been a topic of discussion throughout the year on our Board of Education Student Achievement Committee, as well as some of our district curriculum committees, has been the creation, the collaborative creation and development of something that's called a standards-based report card. for kindergarten through second grade. So I'm going to ask Dr. Shediak to present to you our district's first standards-based report card.
Okay, this thought began several years ago with some teachers who worked as a committee at the elementary level to try to develop a standard-based report card. We had a district-wide committee convened last year to begin this project in real detail. It's taken a long time. We are very proud of the results, and we have developed standard-based report cards for grades kindergarten through grade 2. They will be implemented this coming September. The following September, we will have the same for 3rd through 5th grades. Yeah. Okay. This is just a sample, and everyone should have a sample. I know it's a little hard to see up there, and it is in draft form, so there's still a little bit of tweaking that we will be doing. I sent you my PowerPoint.
Keep talking.
Okay. All right. So why are we going to a standards-based report card? What is a standard-based report card? And a lot of people, if you're not that familiar with it, may be something very different than what you're used to. There will no longer be letter grades or numerical grades. There will no longer be A's, B's, C's, and D's. Okay? And why would we want to do that? Well, Robert Marzano, a very famous educational researcher, said the answer is really quite simple. Grades are so imprecise that they're almost meaningless. If you think about grades, what gets averaged into grades? Homework, right? Does that really show whether or not a student has learned something if they get a grade for homework? So what we've done with the standards base, we're actually taking the standards that students are expected to master at the end of each grade level, and we will be reporting on each of those standards. Okay. So some of the principles of grading that really got us thinking about what we were going to do with this project, and that are really the principles that are behind the entire project. Reporting of grades should be based on clearly specified learning goals and performance standards. Evidence used for grading should be valid. Grading should be based on established criteria, not on some arbitrary norms. And not everything should be included in student grades. And we should avoid grading based on averages. Because if you think about it, what's that average really telling you? Thank you. Okay, and the final principle of grading that we thought about is that we should be focused on achievement and report other factors separately. Okay, here's a quote up here about how traditional grading just promotes a culture of point accumulation and is not really looking at the learning that's taking place. It encourages competition, but not necessarily collaboration. It often focuses on activities, not results, and only involves the assessment of learning, not the assessment for learning, because everything students do gets a score, and every score ends up in the grade book. Okay, I talked about the principles of grading. Okay, what's a standard-based report card? Standard-based report card reports a child's progress towards meeting the state and district standards in each of the content areas. And if you notice on the draft report card, look at all the information that's in there on the different subject areas. Okay? It gives specific information on a student's level of proficiency on a given standard. Rather than getting one grade for reading, they're going to be looking at 6 different areas of reading, very specific information. Okay. The purpose of the reporting system is to report separately what the students' achievement based on the content standards that they're expected to master at the end of the year. And then separately, the students' social development and their work habits. Okay, standards-based grading is focuses on mastering content standards instead of accumulating points for that final numerical grade. It's a report of what students know and are able to do. It includes formative and summative assessments. It's a record-keeping system that informs instruction, and a system that encourages student reflection and responsibility for learning. Okay, we have a lot of benefits of a standard-based reporting system because it's measuring what each student should know, and we're focusing on individually. Identifying the concepts and skills in each learning area that are important for that grade level. Indicate what skills students have mastered and what ones they may still need to work on. Progress will be reported for each of the grade level standards rather than a single grade for a content area. Students, parents, and teachers work together towards shared goals to ensure that students make progress each year. And all the teachers across the district will be looking and having the same expectations and a common understanding at each grade level. Okay, what's not included in the grades? Effort, attendance, participation, citizenship, attitude, extra credit, behavior, group work, homework, and anything that does not specifically relate to a standard. If you look at the back of the draft, you'll see where those items come into play, but they are not part of assessing a student's learning. Here's an example. This is a test, a 5th grade math test, where a student had 3 out of 20 questions incorrect. He got an 85. He got a B. It's a pretty good grade, so you think that this student is doing well. But if you take a look at the standard, that student missed the same standard every time it was presented. So on a standard-based report card, we see that the student needs additional instruction and practice because he's having difficulty with that particular standard. That gives a lot more information to the teacher, the parent, and the student than the grade of B. Okay, students will be measured. There are 4 performance levels. The first one is needs support. I thought this was a great graphic. It likens it to riding a bicycle. When you ride a bicycle, you need support. You can't do it on your own. Here we have children riding a bike, on a tandem bike, and just riding in a seat on the back of mom's bike there. Approaching the standards. A student is able to do it, kind of getting the hang of it, but still needs support. Meeting the standards. The student is able to do it on their own. The goal is to ride a bike. The student is able to ride the bike. So that would be akin to achieving and mastering the standards. This is what we're shooting for, is meeting standards. Okay, that's what we would like the students to be able to do. Exceeding the standards, that's going way above and beyond. You know, doing tricks, riding in some BMX race. Okay, that's exceeding the standards. Okay, really taking the standard and going above and beyond, enhancing it, really doing a lot more with it. How are the teachers going to determine every child's progress level? Okay, they're going to be based on specific tasks and assessments, which will be tied to the learning standards. The teachers will use a rubric to determine each child's performance. These comprehensive rubrics will be used to describe the indicator levels on the report card, and they will be available in the fall on the district's website. We are working this summer to develop those rubrics. Now, the rubric may be different in the first marking period than it is in the second, because in the second marking period, we would hope that the child has progressed a little bit in mastering those standards that they're expected to know at the end of the year. We are planning to go on a trimester basis for this to give the students more time to demonstrate their mastery of the standards. So we would be assessing in December, March, and June. Remember, it doesn't matter where the child starts, it's where he or she finishes. And I thought this was appropriate with our Vision 2030. So, board members, do you have any questions about this?
Mr. Simon?
First of all, I mean, from what I'm seeing here, I think this is a huge step forward for us because it seems to align the Common Core standards right through our curriculum, align with the park, and align with how we assess.
Yes.
So now, if we've got a situation where the park is indicating one thing in terms of student performance, and a particular class on a standard is indicating something else, and it doesn't align with the grading, it indicates a problem. If it's a whole school-wide issue, it indicates a problem at the school level. If it's a district-wide issue, it indicates most likely a problem with the curriculum.
Correct.
Or the rubric that we're using to assess.
Right.
So I do think this is a step forward. A couple of questions. You mentioned the rubric. How, can you give us an example for demonstrates the ability to add within 20 or 10? How would that rubric work in terms of how would I know if a student is meeting expectations or exceeding expectations, or is that not defined yet because you're still working on it?
Well, we're still working on it, but I can give you a little bit of a preview on that. So, to be able to, the ability to add within 20. That's the expectation we have for at the end of the school year, okay? So right away, that's going to be your mastery. That's going to be your meeting standards, okay? Your exceeding standards would be that the student is able to add within 20 fluently, and that they can perhaps even add above 20, okay? And perhaps without any type of visual representation, okay? So that would be exceeding the standards. Approaching the standards might be that they're able to demonstrate the ability to add within 20 with support, with some teacher support. Or maybe they can add up to 15 with some support. Or we could have it be where 80% of the time that would be approaching standards if 80% of the time they're able to do it. Okay.
Now, using that example, you said that adding up to 20, it would be a year-long goal.
Yes.
So let's say with, December, the student can add successfully, 2 plus 2, 3 plus 3, and he's moving towards the standard. How would that skill be measured in the report card?
Okay. Well, the rubric will identify where we would expect the child to be in December along that continuum, knowing what, basically we'll begin with the end in mind.
Got it.
Okay? Just like we do with our curriculum and so many other things we do. We're going to begin with the end in mind. At the end of the year in June, this is what we want the student to do. And then we will back it up in incremental amounts throughout the other marking periods.
Okay, because my concern was that if, the student can't add to 20 in December and you put not meeting the standard, that the teachers are going to start getting phone calls from parents saying, why can't my child add to 20?
Right.
But that's not going to be the case from what you're describing.
It should not be, and the rubrics will be available to the parents. We plan to have them available on the district website. And we'll be having meetings at the beginning of the school year to go over all this with parents. And we'll be developing a parent handbook to go along with this. It's a big change.
It is a big change.
So, we realize it's going to take a lot of talking to people about it and helping them to learn about it.
Now, how much of our elementary faculty have been exposed to this process?
We had volunteers. The committee began over a year ago, and we had a very large turnout. I would say we probably had, I don't know, maybe 30 plus teachers involved. And we had teachers involved kindergarten through 5th grade because the 4th and 5th grade 3rd through 5th grade teachers wanted to be involved in this because this was going to shape what was going to happen for them the following year. It has dwindled the participation in the committee because it's an after-school thing. An after-school committee, we meet once a month. We have all of the kindergarten through 2nd grade teachers have been shown this report card draft, okay, so they are aware of it. The feedback from the teachers has been very positive. We had several PLCs in some of the schools. I know Arleth and Wilson may have. I know Arleth had at least one PLC that during the year worked on helping to develop the report card.
Okay, and is there additional professional development plan for the staff, or are they fully professionally developed on this?
No, there is additional PD planned.
That'll be in the fall, I'm assuming?
Yes, yes. And we will continue to keep them updated about it. We are planning to, as we develop the rubrics over the summer, we will be sending the rubrics, drafts of the rubrics to the teachers for their feedback before they're fully published. And we expect that during this first year that it's going to be a time, you know, where we may have to tweak things a little bit because this is something so new and so different for us here in Sayreville.
And the professional development will be, I guess, at a school level in September, or is it
Yeah.
a district level?
It will be both at a school level through faculty meetings and grade level meetings every other month. In lieu of a second faculty meeting for the month, there are grade level meetings. So for example, all of the kindergarten teachers district-wide meet together after school, and then they do the same thing for all, up to 3rd grade. So, yeah, we'll keep working on it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Yes.
Is there a reason we're stopping at the 5th grade? I mean, this is an all-encompassing report card, obviously. We'd have to reconfigure it for grades 6 through 12. But was there any studies done that maybe doesn't help kids at an older age? Is it better for the younger children?
Most school districts do it K through 5. Few districts do it when the students reach middle school. Doesn't mean that we're not open to looking into it. It's certainly something we would look into. Once you get to the high school level, it's a little bit difficult because the students there, to be competitive, they really need to earn regular grades. Okay, but I think that a lot of the principles behind this can be used in whatever grading we do, even if we end up with numerical and letter grades. I think we can take a lot of these same principles and apply them to a more traditional report card. But it's certainly something that we can look into.
Thank you.
And if I can add a little bit
Sure.
to that, I mean, if you look at the research in education, grades K through 5, we're really teaching the development of skills. It's really skill-based so that kids can master the skills that they're going to need to help them learn independently once they get to 6th through 12th grade. So using a traditional grading system is unfair to kids in grades K through 5 because if they haven't mastered the skills, it's not because of their effort. It's not because they're not trying. It's because cognitively they're not ready, and we need to take a differentiated approach to develop those skills. But I think the reason for going to the traditional methodology when you get to 6th grade and up is the assumption, and this is why we might have to look at that, Mr. Esposito, the assumption that these kids now have the independent learning skills that they need. Now, use your effort. Now, give me, work on your homework, study, do all those things that we taught you in K through 5 to excel and to perform at the highest level. But you know what? You bring about a good point, and it's something that we really should discuss,
yeah.
especially for middle school. I don't see how it
Absolutely.
would work at high school because I don't know how colleges would be able to compare our kids, but it's definitely food for thought for the middle school.
I applaud this, and I have two comments. Number one, it's about time as a Board of Education we're talking about education. That's the first thing, versus the composition of dirt on the baseball field and construction, buses. I mean, this is education, and I applaud this initiative. And I know when we first started discussing this and we looked at these things that are not traditional, like approaching standards, need support, meet standards. I think it's so much more useful information to a parent than to have a kindergartner or first grader come home with an F. And if a kindergartner gets an F, who really failed? You know, and that's how I always looked at it from that perspective at that early of an age. So I think this is very helpful, and you can target it, you know, target weaknesses. And I know this is a big change, and, you know, it's a paradigm change is what it is. And, but I applaud it, and I'm just excited to be talking about education. It's wonderful.
We're thrilled to be able to roll it out.
Yeah.
And just to piggyback on Mike a little bit and talk about the other end, not only the kid who gets the F, but I think sometimes you see kids, especially young ages, who have excellent vocabularies, but they're not really good readers. They you know, kind of compensate with a very good vocabulary. I think this paints a way more accurate picture for a parent of what is my child really learning, what do they really need help in. Sometimes students can really excel in one thing and really be deficient somewhere else, and may be able to, you know, fake their way through the class and get an A where they really have some severe deficiencies that we can now target. As a parent, I know, hey, we need help right here now when they're still developing. So I think we're definitely headed in the right direction.
Good point. Anyone else?
I also want to say thank you to the staff, the teachers that actually partnered on creating this, because, you know, obviously their input is paramount in order to make this a success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the public on this before, if anybody comments before we press on?
Yeah, we've got a grade 1, John Bovary, 1210 Harbor Club Drive. Right. We've got a grade 1 example up here. Would it be different for kindergarten and different for second? These categories would be different for each grade?
Yes, it's different for each grade level. I did not bring the kindergarten and second grade. We just took.
Right, just an example, right.
Just as a sample, yes. They are different, but
They would have to be, right.
they are vertically aligned. We have looked at them side by side to make sure that they are vertically aligned, but the standards are somewhat different.
Sure, they have to be. Okay, good question. All right.
We have another question.
Oh, sure.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm Vicki Alexander. I am the Power School co-coordinator of sorts. I have a question because I did go to a workshop on standard-based learning and Power School and Power Teacher and how we would roll this out. And my question is, getting from other districts, why would we not go with a standard and a numerical base to start the parents and then switch them to solely a parent, just standard base? Just because they are used to seeing the numbers, you know, it is a possibility as well.
You mean to use both a numerical system and the standards-based at the same time?
Yes.
Because there's no need, I'm not sure if I understand why you would want to use both.
My concern is that parents are going to be very floored by this change, and while yes, they are going to be educated on it, I just feel like you are going to receive some backlash about it, so I was just wondering if it was approached to do both.
It's not something we had considered, quite honestly. It's something that we are planning and to educate the parents about, and I think personally that the parents will be very, very happy about this because it's telling them a whole lot more than what a numerically based report card does. And honestly, in kindergarten and first grade, they have G's and S's also.
And I understand that as well. I was just wondering if it was ever approached that you could do both things.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a possibility, but it's honestly not something we had considered.
Okay. I was just asking.
Ms. Alexander, in the workshop, did they speak to, I mean, couldn't it be presumed that an ES is an A? I mean, is it kind of, they have to kind of use their.
You would have to use your
MS is a big
discretion.
Discretion,
No.
thank you.
Yeah.
But I don't really know if necessarily, I'm just thinking as a parent, as this teacher, and as someone who fields parent emails, you know, parents are used to seeing numbers and used to seeing typical ABCs, and while you are going to educate them, you had brought up, you know, why not do it in the middle school? Some high schools and middle schools do it, but they do it, I'll say together.
They run parallel, right.
Right. So I was just wondering if it was thought to roll it out with both and then switch it over.
Certainly not at the K-5 level.
We wanted to get away from that.
We want to get totally away from that, and we want to get away from parents thinking about, honestly, an ES being an A, an MS being a B. because there's vast differences between them. And I think if we kept the numerical at the same time, that we would be just fostering that relationship, which is something we do not want to do.
It's definitely a paradigm change.
Right,
There's no
yeah,
doubt about it.
and it is.
Thank
and
you.
We expect, I've gone to.
We specialize in backlash here.
Right.
I usually just blame Mike because he's the president, but, it's going to be a different way of thinking, but I think it is a way of thinking that, I remember talking about this in college 20 years ago when I was in education, talking about, this is how we should be, analyzing students and, but, Vicky's right, there's definitely going to be some people who are used to seeing that A and hanging it on the refrigerator, but this is the better way to educate. This is gives a better picture of how your student is really doing.
Right, and they'll be just as excited when they get an ES, and they'll hang those on the refrigerator, and
Just redo bumper stickers, my kids
Right.
exceed standards.
right.
I'm going to offer a suggestion in response to Vicky's concern, maybe a different way to address the issue. If we could take the presentation or a similar format that Dr. Shediak just did and make it a YouTube video, we can take you to YouTube.
Okay.
And then we can link it up to Power School so that when parents log on and start seeing how students are performing, they can see we've got a new grading system. Here's the YouTube video that explains why we've done the transition. It's something we could do on parent-teacher conference nights while
Right.
the parents are waiting in the hallways, so that as they go in, they're prepped for it.
Right, and it's certainly something that will be brought up at back-to-school nights.
Right.
In kindergarten, first and second grade. We absolutely plan to do that. We plan to really educate the parents on it. And I think the parents are going to be pleased with it, I really do.
To Mr. Sayak's point earlier, I think you're going to have to really get everybody on board and preach the same message. Each
Yes.
teacher, you can't vary.
Right.
Yeah.
Because consistency is the key here.
Right.
Because I just went ES as an A,
Right,
I
right.
mean, I'm old, okay?
Right.
This is how I think.
Well,
No,
I mean,
but
but I understand.
that's
and-
logical.
And ES is good.
Yes, good, yeah.
ES is good. ES is better than an A, really.
It's better than an
It really is. It's really, means you're going so far above and beyond, because when a student got an A, what did that really mean?
Yeah.
If you
Agreed.
think
No, I
about
like
it.
It means they
So-
exceed
I like it.
standards.
No, not necessarily. It means they got 100%,
Just right for
but
that.
that's maybe just meeting standards.
Listen, there's
This
no reason why
provides-
we can't get this word out in 2016 over
Yes.
electrons.
Yes.
So, good.
Yeah.
I think this is 2030 happening.
Yes, it is,
Serious, I mean, it's.
which I'm going to talk about later on as well.
Good. Okay, so let's move forward. Everybody should have got a copy of the minutes from the regular executive session meetings of the 3rd and the 17th. Anybody have any questions, comments, deletions, additions of the minutes? Seeing none, I'll accept the motion to accept and file the
We
minutes.
need the motion this time.
What's that?
Last time we didn't make the motion.
Didn't I just say I needed a motion to
Yes,
accept?
that's why, please, make the motion.
Mrs. Bloom.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Bauka?
Yes.
Mrs. Backo?
Yes.
Mr. Bashada?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Sayak?
I still need to abstain on the May 3rd minutes since I was in Dallas for work, and I'll vote yes on the other minutes.
Mrs. DePinto?
I will abstain on May 17th. I was not here. I will vote yes on May 3rd.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
And Mr. McEnroe?
Yes. Mrs. Bacco is now going to share with us the district highlights.
On May 5th, 2016, Truman Elementary School was recognized at the Middlesex County Board of Chosen Freeholders to receive recognition as being one of the top 15 schools in Middlesex County for collecting food for Middlesex County Food Organization and Outreach Distribution Services. They collected 1,500 pounds of food. Congratulations to Truman School for their generosity and caring. Congratulations to 6 fifth-grade students from the Samsel Upper Elementary School who were selected to attend the Central Jersey Music Education Association Elementary Honors Chorus. Top students from all around Central New Jersey met to rehearse and prepare a selection of choral music and perform a concert. Along with music teacher Mrs. Amy Wells, the 6 students that were selected are Michelle Boateng, Alexis Cannon, Wade Guerra, Carolina Hanelwitz, Crystal Marte, and Allison McCracken. Congratulations to the Sayreville Warmer High School boys golf team for their white division win. Congratulations to Erin McQuaid for winning the individual GMC Girls Golf Championship, and to Coach Tom Poklowski for being named Coach of the Year. On Saturday, May 21st, several hundred people participated in the first annual Sayreville Parents of Autistic Children Walk for a difference at Sayreville War Memorial High School. The event was planned and coordinated by the multiple disability program special education teachers at both the Samsel Upper Elementary School and Sayreville Middle School. Over 60 staff members volunteered their time for this event. Over 500 people attended, with 32 registered teams participating. As a district, we raised $32,000.
Thank you. Dr. Labby,
Sir.
please take us through your report.
Thank you, Mr. McEnone. If I can bring everyone's attention to Vision 2030 Finance and Infrastructure. Numbers 3 through 6, we're asking you to approve our designated person and environmental consultant, our attorney, our auditor, and our architect. And those can be found on pages 3 through 4, and those are all for the 2016-17 school year. Number 7, we're asking you to approve the George A. Coteen Associates Incorporated for an energy audit, and that's from July 1st through June 30th, and that can be found on page 5. Number 8, we're asking you to approve our annual E-rate application. You can find that on page 5, and of course that's from July 1 through June 30th of 2018. Numbers 9 and 10, we're asking you to award a contract for online payment management to the Heartland School Solutions Company. You can find that on page 5. We're also asking you to approve to award a contract with Plan Connect for third-party administration services, retirement plan, as well on page 5. All of those are from July 1, 2016 through June 30th, 2017. Numbers 11 through 14, we're asking you to approve the renewal of our Aetna medical prescription and dental plans, effective July 1 through June 30th, 2017. You can find those on pages 5 and 6. Number 15, we're asking you to approve a resolution to appoint several educational services, mostly special education related, and for their agreement for professional services between the board and them from July 1, 2016 through June 30th, 2017. All of them can be found on pages 6 and 7. Number 6.
Dr. Labby,
Yes.
just has a strike. For some reason, the word retroactively is placed in item number 15.
Okay, strike that. Item number 15, you said?
The word retroactively.
Strike retroactively from item number 15 in that resolution. Number 16, we're asking you to approve a resolution authorizing the Sayreville Board of Education to enter into a cooperative pricing agreement with New Jersey School Boards Association. You can find that on pages 8 and 9. Number 17, we're asking you to approve a contract with our architect for window replacement at the middle school. You can find that on page 9. Moving along, number 19, we're asking you to approve a resolution to dedicate and name the field that's located behind the Central Administration Building, that's the Jesse Salover School, as the private first-class Wayne Grant Memorial Field, and to erect a sign and flagpole located there in memory of private first-class Wayne Grant. You can find that resolution on page 9. Numbers 21 through 31, we're asking you to approve several building permits. Some of them are in accordance with our district facility usage fee schedule. Those can be found on pages 10 and 11. Numbers 33 through 34 and number 39, approval of student trips with transportation costs. Those can be found on pages 12 and 14. I believe some of those are our Camp Excel trips. Number 37, we're asking you to approve several transportation contracts that went to the lowest responsible bidders. Those bids were opened on May 17th, and of course, they're for the 2016-17 school year. You can find them on page 13 and 14. Number 40, we're asking you to approve one private out-of-district tuition contract for a student with a disability. We have 3 bedside tutoring contracts for students that are currently hospitalized, and a student with an auditory impairment needs an FM system. Those can all be found on page 15. Any questions on, or any comments on finance and infrastructure?
Yeah, Mike.
Yes.
On number 19, since we're dedicating a field to his name in perpetuity, is that a special, is it any field, or is it just that one field?
The sign is already there. What happened was, about a year ago, Ken Kelly of the Veterans Commission, which I'm involved with, asked about that, and I said he'd send a letter to the board, and we'll discuss it with the board. And somehow, what happened was the sign and the flagpole went up before we got the letter.
Now, what happens if we need to build a new school where that field is, and we're going to make a new field somewhere else? Could we name that field?
Then the perpetuity problem is a problem.
That's
Yeah.
My concern is about if we have
I
to use that
understand.
land for building. We'll still have a field there, but it might not be in the same location.
Yeah, I grant it, and that'll be their issue. The time they do, we need the land, we need the land, it's our land. We're just saying, as long as it stays the way it is, it will be named.
Okay, so we need to build a school there. It's not going to be an issue.
No, I mean,
Okay.
it's our property.
I mean, I have no problem with naming the field.
Understand.
I just hope if we need that land and we're going to pick another field, we'll name the other field.
Yeah, I think if
And-
we build a school on the softball fields, that'd be a bigger issue than moving the signs, so. But yeah, I understand your concern.
Okay.
I don't think that's something the Veterans Commission is gonna have an issue with.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I think I could speak on that.
On number 7, the George Coteen contract. Was that reviewed by the attorneys?
The last time that we did it, they reviewed the initial contract several years ago. It hasn't changed since then.
We have a contract with them now, you're saying, or no?
Yeah, we've had a contract with them for several years.
I thought I think it was problems with the first contract because it was automatic renewal, so we never ended up having.
No, we've had a contract with them for several years.
Okay, I'm going to vote no on number 7 anyway.
What does this contract cost?
50% of any
It's
savings.
fee-based, based on how much they get, a percentage of whatever they find for us in their energy audits. So depending on what they find, and we've had a lot of problems over the years with broken meters, meters running fast. So they review our bills and they're able to determine those things.
They get 50% of the savings. So my only problem is, for the next 36 months, they get to project how much savings we had because of that finding, and they bill us
But they have to be able to prove it.
on that too.
But they have to
No,
prove that.
it's billing will be rendered on an estimated basis if we don't give them the records, and there's no way of proving.
Right, but so
We
far
give the records.
they've proven every findings they have.
I used to use them at work myself, and there's no way you could figure out if they're telling the truth or not, because you can't. That's why you're hiring them, because they know the ins and outs of the system. I mean, I'd rather table them. Let's wait for the new BA to take a look at it and see if she's comfortable with it before we.
Are we saving money? How much?
There's
did we
no
save?
way, Mike, there's no way of knowing.
They've saved us money every
There's-
time.
There's no way of knowing.
They're
Because
not
you pay,
saving.
for 36 months afterwards. You could be,
The only proof I have is the exact credit that I received on the PSE&G bills that show the credits coming back to the district.
What type of percentage of that is off the
This
bill?
last bill, it was over $9,000 that we had in a direct credit from PSE&G reflecting all the work that they've done. So
And then
the
they
billing
give
is the
them
proof.
4,500?
Yes,
Yeah.
or somewhere around there, yes.
So
then
we
they
save
bill-
4,500.
and then they get, supposedly if we say, because now they're billing us at the right rate, they're going to get a percentage of savings for the next 3 years because they made that correction. And the other thing,
Provided
the
the
contract
service for
also,
the years,
the
so-
contract also looks at telecommunications, which is, I'm having a problem with because we're going to switch to a new telephone
Well,
system.
we haven't used them for telecommunications.
It's in the contract, though.
I know, but we
So-
don't use them for it. It's
Just
only
because we
what
don't use
send
it,
them.
it just says it's in the contract. I mean, they come in the door and say, okay, we're saving $200,000 on telecommunications. They
They
want
only can save it
100,000.
the money if we send it to them. We don't send it to them, they don't do it.
I'm still going to vote no. I'm just not comfortable with the contract.
And they've proven themselves over the years. That much I can tell the board.
Any other questions on this section? If not, next section.
If I can have your attention, bring it to Vision 2030 student achievement. Number 1, we're asking you to approve Sayreville University New Teacher Institute celebration on this Thursday. It can be found on page 16, and that's where we celebrate the accomplishments of all of our new teachers. Numbers 3 to 4, on page 16, we're asking you to approve the formation of several new clubs at the high school, the Model United Nations Club, the Animal Rights Club, the RHYS Foundation, that's the Rendering Happiness for Youth with Sickness Club. Again, all of those are at the high school, and you can find them on page 16. Number 5, we're asking you to approve 4 high school students to attend the SAD 2016 National Conference. That is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, from June 25th through June 29th. You can find that on page 16. And number 6, we're asking you to approve the 8th grade MD class, a multiple disabilities class, to walk to the high school for an orientation on Thursday, June 9, 2016. And as you know, Board of Education members, next year we will have our first multiple disabilities program here at the high school, and that is what that orientation is all about. So we're asking your permission for them during the course of the day to walk down the path with their teacher to attend orientation. Any questions or comments on
Dr. Lavin?
Vision 2030 student
Mr.
achievement?
Brashada.
On these new clubs that are being formed, are the people that are going to be supervising, are they volunteer, or they be giving such as a stipend or a coaching position that would be
They're volunteers.
payable?
They're all volunteers.
Volunteered?
Okay.
Okay, seeing none? None other, I mean? Number, Vision 2030 governance, that should actually be letter C. We're asking to approve the May 2016 HIB report that was referenced by Ms. Reese earlier in her presentation. You can find that in its entirety on pages 17 and 18. Number 2, we're asking you to retroactively approve Mr. Walsh to continue to serve as the representative on the Middlesex Regional Educational Services Commission. That is now the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey, by the way. I think something is holding it up before they come public.
No,
It is
made it
public
public.
now?
Yep.
Good. So from this day forward, we'll refer to it as the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey. And that would be from June 7, 2016. This is retroactively through May 31st of 2017. Any questions on Vision 2030 governance?
Mr. Magano, just one comment. Every time I see Mark Finkelstein, who is the superintendent of the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey, he commends Mr. Walsh, for his service on the board and the contribution that he makes, especially being the parent of a special needs child. So that's been very advantageous having John as the representative to that board from us.
Good on you.
I agree.
Thanks, and it's an honor to serve on the board, and for those of you who don't know what they exactly do, they work to keep as many kids in a public setting as they can. You've heard Dr. Labby talk about it. We believe kids succeed in the least restrictive environment, and there's a lot of districts who struggle with kids who want to go to some of the private institutions who cost a lot more money, but I don't think get better results than some of the facilities that we can have in district. They help us keep kids here, and they also, the Center for Lifelong Learning and some of the Bright Beginnings schools they do. So it's good work they're doing there.
And the only problem I have is their meetings are right before our superintendent roundtable meetings for the county, and I have to talk to Mr. Walsh because we bump into each other.
Right.
So that's the only problem I have with it. Okay, if I can direct your attention now to Vision 2030 personnel, and again, we have this bittersweet moment where we're very happy for some people that are moving on to the next chapter of their lives, but we're also sad because of what they're going to leave behind. So I'm going to leave the first one to Mr. DeAndrea because he knows this individual far better than I do, but I too would like to give a couple of comments about him when Mr. DeAndrea is done.
It's my distinct pleasure to talk about Dennis Pantoliano. Dennis entered the district in November of 2007 and had an immediate impact on the district. He was thrown into this high school addition when things weren't going well, and he had an immediate impact in making sure that this building moved ahead and made it work and brought this building to completion without any disruption since he's been on. Mr. Pantoliano worked on many district roofs, boiler replacements, and probably most impressive was the middle school bathroom renovations, where he not only mentored his staff, he actually stood by their sides and made sure they learned. So Mr. Pantoliano is a mentor to all of his staff, and he's also been a mentor to me, not to mention also a big brother to me over the years. If I had to say 3 words about Mr. Pantoliano, the 3 things that come to mind: dedicated, hardworking, and committed. He's always been there. When Dr. Labby and I had to speak at 3 o'clock in the morning because of snow, somewhere along the line, Dennis somehow managed to get here and already know what was going on in the district, so he was always committed. I know Dennis is moving on to enjoying his grandchildren. I know he's looking forward to going out fishing, and 40 miles doesn't seem far enough for him. He's talking about doing some shark fishing, and he has an interested business venture that he's looking forward to doing with his wife. So Dennis is not looking to retire to sit back and totally relax. He is looking to move on. So it's my pleasure to wish him well. He deserves it. He's worked hard all his life, and he's been a true asset to the district.
Thank you, Mr. DeAndrea. And if I could,
Yeah. I would like to just, make a comment about that, about Mr. Pantaleano. My only regret after hiring him is we didn't hire him sooner. And I think if we would have had him here when we started the construction of this high school, we could have avoided a lot of the problems and cost overruns that we wound up having. Also, what always impressed me about him is that I could see him and watch him talk with engineers on technical specifications, and then turn around and use colorful language talking to the guy on the ladder. So he was able to do that. He was very multifaceted. And I hate to see him go. I really did. He was a good guy and very knowledgeable about the business.
anyone else from the board?
Dr. Labby, if we all vote no, will he stay?
I don't think so.
No.
And if I could sum up Dennis in 2 words, I mean, I haven't had a chance to work with Dennis nearly as long as I would have wanted to, just approaching my 2nd year with him, but number one, brilliant. Just knew so much about everything. There was, I don't ever remember a topic with regard to buildings and grounds where he wasn't incredibly astute on it. And you're right, Mr. McEnone, I mean, he could open up a blueprint and tell a contractor what to do. It was amazing. And the other word I would use is fast. If you wanted something done, it was done like then. I'll never forget when we were moving our rooms, and we said, okay, Dennis, Tamika and I want to switch rooms. So I went to Camp Excel that morning. I got back and my office was moved. Like that fast, and everything was in place. It was incredible. He very, very hardworking, very, very dedicated, professional, and an outstanding and amazing person, and someone that was an absolute joy to work with. So I, too, am going to miss Mr. Pantaleano very much.
Dr. Labby?
Yes.
I'd just like to make a few comments about Dennis. Dennis always had a positive attitude. One of the main things that he always said to me is that we accomplished a lot here during his tenure. One of the things that I think that Dennis did was he taught and worked with our staff to do the jobs in-house instead of outsourcing. Before I came onto the board and before Dennis came into the area, a lot of the maintenance work was outsourced, which cost the district a considerable amount of money. Dennis believed in everything being done in-house that could be done, and he did do it. He trained the personnel, he worked with the personnel. Like you said, his list of accomplishments of sitting down, working with the contractors, working with the architects, the staff, et cetera, moving and getting things done, roofs, and bathrooms, and the heating systems in Arlets with the univents. And, I wish Dennis was still here because with the amount of monies that we can raise, I know we can do more in-house and accomplish more. But I give him credit because he turned this facility and this whole idea with our buildings and grounds into a positive attitude, made the staff positive in their actions and their wanting to be and do things by learning. I can only say that I'm going to truly miss him as an individual and miss him as a friend.
Thank you, Mr. Bashada.
I'd also just like to say that I agree with Mr. McEnone, I agree with Mr. Bashada, and I agree with Dr. Labby, and I don't think that's ever happened before, which means I'm really concerned.
You're getting smarter.
Maybe that's it.
Don't start something new now.
But truly, an outstanding individual for our district, and I know, and Mr. Bashada, Mr. McEnone both noticed as well, we had a hard time finding the right individual for that spot, but when we found Dennis, we clearly found the right individual.
Thank you. We're also going to miss another integral part of our family here in Sayreville. This evening, the Sayreville Board of Education would like to recognize the retirement of Mr. Alan Squitieri. Mr. Squitieri has decided to retire after 41 years in education. He began his career 41 years ago as a special education teacher at a school for children with autism. He has been a high school special education teacher, a learning disabilities teacher consultant, as well as an adjunct professor at Kean University and Jersey City University. Mr. Squitieri has spent the past 33 years in educational administration. Prior to coming to Sayreville, he was the principal of the Centennial High School, which was a Union County Education Services special needs school serving students at risk. After 16 years at Centennial High School, Mr. Squitieri decided to come to Sayreville to be the middle school vice principal in November of 1999, a position he held for the past 17 years. Mr. Squitieri will retire in August, and he plans to spend a great deal of time traveling. He is a true asset to the community and will be sorely missed. And on a personal note, I must say that, again, this is another individual that I'm sad that I didn't have nearly enough time to spend with him, to learn from him, and to work side by side with him. Truly an amazing educator, a fantastic leader, and again, just as with Mr. Panteliano, a wonderful person. And you know, we're going to miss him dearly as a district, but we're going to miss him a lot at the middle school because he truly has been a base to that school. So we wish Mr. Squitieri and we wish Mr. Panteliano the absolute best in the next chapters of their lives. Moving along to numbers 3 through 8, we do have some resignations here for you to accept. Those are on page 19. Numbers 9 and 10, we're asking you to approve several leaves of absence for the 2015-16 as well as 16-17 school year. Number 13 through 15, we have some very special people for you to appoint. We have several teachers there we're asking you to approve, but we also have several special administrators who are here this evening. As you know, Mr. DeAndrea is leaving me. Not happy about that. But we went ahead and we conducted a very comprehensive search. And Board of Education members, we believe we have found an outstanding candidate who has a rich amount of experience at several different school districts, most recently the Hamilton School District, where she is currently serving as the assistant to the business administrator. She's incredibly intelligent, she's driven, and I think that she is perfect for this position. And that's Mrs. Erin Hill, and she's here tonight with us. And as you know, as you recently saw in our Board of Education report last month, we did have to also conduct a search for a new director of athletics and supervisor of physical education. And again, we conducted a pretty comprehensive search. And again, we found someone who I believe is an amazing and outstanding candidate. She comes to us from the Wayne Public Schools, where she has served for many, many years as a physical education teacher, as well as a coach in, I would say, about 5 or 6 different sports, some of which she was a head coach, some of which she was an assistant coach. And most recently, she has served for about 6 years as either the vice principal who's in charge of athletics and physical education or the supervisor of physical education. So Board of Education members, I present to you Mrs. Jennifer Badami, our candidate for Director of Athletics and Supervisor of Physical Education. And finally, as you know, our beloved Mrs. Shedlock decided to step down and retire as well from the Director of Transportation position that she has held for many years here in Sayreville. So again, we went ahead and we conducted a comprehensive search. And we found a very, very special and very talented person who we feel has both the tangible and intangible qualities to be a highly effective Director of Transportation. She has served in a transportation department for the past 15 years. In fact, she was asked by her current school district, the Redditon Township School District, to go ahead and almost single-handedly redevelop their entire transportation department, which she did with great formative as well as fiscal success. So we believe that she too is going to be a great addition to our administrative team. So I present to you Mrs. Christine Vestano. Once again, Board of Education members, we're asking you to approve these highly talented and very special candidates, as well as all of the special candidates that are listed in this motion for appointment for the 2016-17 school year. Numbers 18 through 20, we're asking you to approve the middle school choral director, as well as the winter guard, the assistant band director and winter guard coordinator, or advisor, I should say, and some unpaid coaching aides for the 2016-17 school year. Those can all be found on pages 22 through 23. Numbers 16 through 17, as well as 21 through 24, we're asking you to approve summer hours for our athletic trainer at the high school, our guidance counselors, special education part-time secretaries, and bus drivers. And that can be found on pages 22 through 24. Number 25, as well as number 36, we're asking you to approve of several staff transfers for the 2016-17 school year. And that can be found on pages 24 through 27, as well as the addendum. And you will note that most of those transfers are due to the implementation of the looping macro strategy that we have discussed before. I will make one comment. Number 25, Robin Skork, that's actually incorrect. She should be going from kindergarten to first grade. I think we have it there as first grade to kindergarten. She's actually going from kindergarten to first grade. So I asked you if you could make that simple correction there. But again, as you can see, nearly all of those transfers are due to the implementation of looping. And of course, Mr. DeAngelo would explain to you, we do have to put that on a Board of Education meeting agenda because we actually pay kindergarten teachers through a different account line than we do first grade teachers, so it has to be a board-approved transfer. Number 28, we're asking, actually number 26 through 27, we're asking you to approve several certificated and non-certificated substitutes. Those can be found on page 27. Number 28, we're asking you to approve 3 paraprofessionals to be compensated directly by the New Jersey. That is incorrect. That would be paid for by the Board of Education. I'm sorry, that is a typo there. The 3 paraprofessionals that we're asking you to approve are going to be paid by the Board of Education to provide support to several students that are going to be participating in our Summer Unified Sports Special Olympics program. It's a track and field program, and therefore some of them are going to require the assistance of a paraprofessional. That will be paid by the Board of Education, not by the Special Olympics. I apologize for that error. Of course, that would take place from May 23rd, 2016 until June 17th. That can be found on page 28. Number 29, we're asking you to approve of middle school credit completion summer school staff on an as-needed basis, and that can be found on page 28. Number 30, we're asking you to approve teachers to write curriculum for implementation in 2016-17. That can be found on pages 28 and 29. Number 31, we're asking you to approve of the renewal of all non-certificated staff for the 2016-17 school year. And I will add that those non-certificated staff members that are SEA members, that is pending contract negotiations. Numbers 32 through 33, as well as number 37, we're asking you to approve the staff to work at the Summer Enrichment Program, the Camp Excel program, as well as those teachers and professionals that will be doing work called summer IEP work. We've talked about this before. Even though we go on our summer break, special education, particularly child study, does not stop. There are children that need to be evaluated, so we have to pay child study team members to evaluate them, therapists to evaluate them, teachers to participate in meetings, as well as our therapists and our child study team members. All of those can be found on different attachments. You can see the actual people on those attachments. And summer IEP work can be found on the addendum of the agenda. And finally, number 34, we're asking to approve professional days, and that can be found on page 30.
Thank you. Any questions from the board before I open up for the public? Seeing none, at this time, I'd like to open for the public for any comments, questions on the agenda items only. I will open up it again to the public for any business that may become before this board. Any questions, comments on the agenda items? Seeing none, I'll close the public portion and entertain a vote to accept and file the superintendent's report.
Mike, can I make a motion to table number 7, the co-team contract?
Sure.
It won't do any harm because they're gonna get their money sooner or later if we just, pending the, the new BA's arrival.
Okay, what item is that?
Number 7 on
What
page
page?
5.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor to table item number 7 on page 5. I need a second motion.
Second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to table. I need a vote. Let's take a vote on tabling the item before we vote on the superintendent's report.
Second by Mr. Bashada. Mr. Balko.
Yes.
Mrs. Backup.
Yes.
Mr. Bashada.
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom.
Yes.
Mr. Syak.
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto.
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
And Mr. McEnroe.
Yes, okay, the motion passed. We table that item to do some more
So be it.
research and discussion. Okay, next the motion, I'd like to accept the motion to accept and file the superintendent's report.
So moved.
I need a second. Please, roll call vote.
Mr. Balko.
Hold on. I'm gonna vote no on item number 31 for the non-certificated supervisors. Yes on all other items.
What page is that on there?
Page 29, number 31, it's
No to non-certificated supervisors.
correct. It's towards the,
Yeah, I see
it's a
it.
standard
I
no
see it.
vote for me.
Yep. Okay.
And yes, otherwise it's noted.
Mrs. Backup.
I'm going to vote no on page 22, number 15, and also on the attachment for the non-certificated supervisors.
Okay. Note item number 15. And noted 31 non-certificated supervisors. Mr. Bashada.
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom.
Yes.
Mr. Syak.
Just a question, who are the non-certificated supervisors? I'm trying to, who are we talking about?
It's,
I'm going to assume
with Sherry and Michelle Knight.
Ah, got it.
You should remember.
Okay.
there's only 2 or 3 of them.
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto.
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
And Mr. McEnroe.
Yes. Okay, finance service director, have a meeting lately?
No.
Good. Student achievement. Would you like to give a brief summary on the last curriculum meeting?
Sure. Well, the one thing we discussed, which I discussed at the beginning with Mr. Bruce, so I just want to know, does, for the exemptions, does any board members have any objections or comments? Because it was referred to the Student Achievement Committee a while ago, so.
Just 2 questions. First, you're proposing that they be exempt from the 4th quarterly, correct?
Right, that was right, we talked about the 4th quarterly in place of the final.
Okay, and Dr. Labby, you're still recommending the quarterly process, and you're recommending this proposal?
This proposal, I'm not recommending this proposal.
You're not recommending this
I
proposal?
mean, we
No, we
didn't talk
just
about.
discussed it.
We discussed it, but we didn't discuss about implementing it this year. We discussed the fact that we would look into it for next year.
Oh, I didn't get the impression we were doing it for this year. I thought.
No,
we-
no,
No,
we
we're
were
not.
talking about it for next year. I just wanted to give Mr. Bruce the feedback that we had
Okay.
discussed.
The intention was to let
at
Mr.
This is
Bruce
for
know
next year.
that was a topic of discussion by the curriculum committee and what we discussed and what we were looking at implementing in the future.
Oh, yeah, I mean.
And she made it clear as a further discussion, yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, what we decided at the meeting hasn't changed.
So just so I'm clear, you're recommending for next year, we keep the quarterlies, and that the exemptions occur based upon Mrs. Batko's?
No. What I'm recommending is that we have discussions about it next year, about doing something like that. I'm open to discussing making
Okay.
that change for next year.
So it would be premature for us to vote on it, other than to say
No,
we're
I
open
wasn't
to having
asking for a vote. I
discussion.
was just
We're not
asking
voting
if
on it.
anybody
She's
had
just
any
asking if any-
comments
Oh,
on it.
okay.
That's all.
Got it, all right.
Because it had
I
come up
misunderstood it, too.
before, and it was
No, we will have
sent
full
off to
board
the
discussion
committee.
again before we implement it.
That's fine, okay.
Mrs. Batko, if you'll remember it, when
Right.
Mr. Bruce over here brought that up, that the students had talked about it, I wholly supported that they not have to be required if they've gotten that grade point average above to take finals, because I think they've worked hard enough during the year, the academic year, to earn that right by their grade average, that they shouldn't be forced to take the final. I think it's an incentive for the student body to achieve higher marks and higher learning, and then have the reward for their efforts.
Okay. Do you want to comment?
I totally agree. I think it's like Mr. Bruce said, if they have an 89 and they know they need the 93, they're going to shoot for that 93. I know seniors right now, if they have an 89, they're, yeah, I got it. See? Yeah, I got an 89, I'm done. And, you know, that's what's going to happen. If they know they get that 93 and they're not taking that quarterly, they're going to get that 93, or they're going to do their damnedest to get that 93. Sorry, Phyllis.
Okay, there'll be further discussion with the curriculum committee. So. Next.
We spoke about the rate of the park refusals. It's considerably down from last year. We talked about the graduation requirement update. Do you have any update on how we're doing with that?
We're down to one student.
One student.
One
So-
student who
That's
has
good.
not made the testing requirement.
And we're going to find
So-
out
Okay.
tomorrow on
Yes,
that student.
yes.
And do
we're-
they still have a chance? Or
Yeah, we're going to
yes,
find out tomorrow.
There is still a chance, so we have our fingers crossed.
Never been that low.
Okay, we received committee updates, looping, which is on schedule for September. The block scheduling committee has been meeting. As of the last curriculum meeting, Mr. Glahusky and some of his teachers were visiting the school district in Jackson to look at their block scheduling, and we had gotten positive feedback from what I believe from Mr. Glahusky on that. You heard about the report card for K through 2. There was a tag information meeting for parents. There were about 75 parents who attended to go over the changes in the tag. Was that discussed what was changing, or just the requirements? Was the specifics given out to the parents?
Yes, yes,
they
the
were.
specifics. It's the criteria for being selected for the
For being
program.
selected. Okay.
Yes.
And that's it.
Thank you.
Ms. McEnroe, can I
Thank
just add on to that? As my last session in governance with New Jersey school boards, I had pointed it out, and again, this is general information, that the Ivy League schools are now only accepting 3 AP exams, and they are only accepting 3 extracurricular activities. So that just is something for general information moving forward.
Okay, policy?
No report?
Personnel?
We met twice, the highlight of which was meeting our new dynamic athletic director. Got to meet last week out of a group of very good candidates.
Okay. Blue Ribbon Committee.
Yes, we had our first Blue Ribbon Committee meeting. An enthusiastic group of people turned out. They were interested in the information we had to bring them regarding pilot program and how it's going to affect the school district. We will move forward with meetings and take recommendations from the committee, and hopefully we can come up with something that will help to solve our problems.
All right, for the information of the public, the Blue Ribbon Committee was a committee established to look at the building that's going on here in Sayreville and how it's going to impact enrollment in the school district. Particularly the Point, which is going to bring in 2,000 residences. Okay, and what we're trying to do is to be proactive versus being reactive. After we had that meeting, in that meeting, there were, I'd say, about 10 or 12 people from the community, and we disseminated some information. And after that meeting, there was a post to Facebook by the, I'm not going to mention the names, but by the chairman of SERA, who was shocked that there was overcrowding in the school district and how he was not informed of that and he didn't know anything about that. So I'm going to make him aware. Right now, what I did is in our audit report every year, as we know, it tells us what the capacities of our buildings are. And then every month, Dr. Labby sends out the school enrollment report by building. Okay, so let me just go through a few of those. At Slover, there are no students currently there, so that's not an issue. In Arleth has a building capacity of 583. We currently have an enrollment of 517. So we have some room in Arleth. We always knew that. Eisenhower has a building capacity of 481. We have 544 there. Okay? And that's directly impacted by the development across the road, which is Lemire, which still isn't completely built out. Truman School has a building capacity of 474. We have 539. These are our elementary schools. Wilson, our oldest building, has a capacity of 373. We have 398. The upper elementary school, which was built when, Mr. Sack?
The upper elementary school, I believe 2000.
2000. It has a total
2004?
capacity of 1,095. We currently have 1,016. So we're quickly approaching maximum enrollment. The middle school has a building capacity of 1,608. We have 1,393. We have room in the middle school, and we have room in the high school. After we did the addition to the high school, it has a capacity of 2,200. We have 1,667 currently right now. With the building of the Point in 2,000 units, the developer, and I also sit on the planning board, explained to me that that will produce 300 school-aged children. Now, I don't know what math they used, or what formulas they used, but I've never seen a fiscal impact statement for a development town that actually worked out to what their estimates were. So since doing something in construction is a long-term project, the time is not to wait when the Point is built and then say, we have an enrollment capacity. So we formed this committee, and we're looking at different options, but the first thing I want to do and bring back to the next meeting is exactly what the enrollments are. So obviously, we have a problem in the elementary schools. We do have some capacity as we go up the pyramid into the UES, the middle school, and the high school. But the elementary schools are the problem, and they continue to be the problem, especially in the kindergarten and first grade. So that's why we have the blue ribbon paddle. And I know that to some of us in the community, they may have agendas. Sometimes the facts are very inconvenient, but nevertheless, I feel an obligation to report those here publicly on a televised meeting. And maybe my comments will be another result of a Facebook post. I can only hope. So that's where we are right now. I just want to get everybody up to speed on what's going on with the blue ribbon. Any other committees I'm unaware of that may have met?
Mr. McEnroe?
Yes.
Just for what you're talking about, the Point has a number between the condominiums and the apartments of 1,684 extra bedrooms.
Right.
Than the one bedrooms that everyone is anticipating. Second of all, Highview, which is where the Club Benet property is, has a capacity of 68 extra bedrooms. Am I correct on that? Because you're on a planning board. And,
yes.
Again,
those are 3
you're
bedrooms.
looking at a minimum of 68 students possibly coming out of that development. Am I correct, Dr. Labby? At that
That's
apartment
about right.
complex?
Yes, but did that change to, did you mention at the Blue Ribbon Committee that that changed to adult living?
To what?
Did you make that comment at the Blue Ribbon Committee? Did anything change with the Club Benet project?
No.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, and for everyone's information, there's a developer in town that I understand bought property at the lower Ernston extension, which goes to Main Street. And if I'm correct, there's some proposal that I've heard in the wind, which will come true, of a minimum of 250 homes in that area. So,
well, you also have to understand about what our fair share cost of affordable housing is going to be, too, that the state's going to mandate upon the community as well.
I mean, it's just astronomical, the amount of students that, within the next 10 years, that will be coming into the district.
Now, here's the real kicker. Even though that enrollment we're going to see, there's talk on the other side of town about making those developments what we call a pilot program, payment in lieu of taxes, which simply means that the developer, based on a negotiated amount with the borough, will pay a payment in lieu of paying taxes like the rest of us do that own properties. Traditionally, the Board of Education gets 56% of the taxes collected in town for the Borough of Education. And we went to the last few council meetings trying to get a philosophical discussion going on whether the pilot program, which we are against, does get enacted, that we would get 56% of whatever's collected. And that conversation went south after about 5 minutes. So that's where we stand right now. We're going to continue to fight the fight. But this is where we are now. We're talking about it now, and I've been talking about the overcrowding at Eisenhower since 2005. So I don't know where people are first hearing about this. I guess you hear what you want to hear, but that's where we are right now. So. Okay.
Does the Blue Ribbon Committee have a timeline of when they want to make a recommendation? Do you have a
Well, what
a
we're talking
schedule?
about, whatever we do is going to cost money that we don't have. So probably what's possibly going to happen is an extra ballot question out there on whether we want to build something. And then the question is, what do we build and where do we build it? And what is that going to cost? We currently own land, and that's what Mr. Balco was talking about earlier, the land behind Slover. The thought is that you can build a school behind there. at an elementary, and I think we're all in agreement of community schools like Slover, like Truman, like Wilson, that's nestled in a community, that's what we want to do. We're not going to acquire any land. There is no other land to build a school in town that I'm aware of. But we have land to do that. And the question is, this board, at least some of us, are a little gun-shy about building things after what we went through with just adding on to this building. But I think we all agree building a building from scratch is less complicated than building a modern building and trying to connect it to something that was built in the 1960s. So,
I'll give testimony under oath on that one.
well, there you go. So that's what we're looking at, folks. It's going to be an issue not for the Board of Ed, but for the community at large, because we're all in this together. And I tried to explain the other side of town that we have the same taxpayers. It's us. And we're trying to be proactive about this and head this off at the pass. So that's where we are.
Well, I think it's also important to let the public know that pilot programs are only offered for commercial properties in the past.
In the past,
And
they
the
have.
fact that they're trying to put pilot to residential, which are the pieces that generate the students, it's ludicrous. And for anyone on the borough council to say they don't know what we're going to do with the money is also ludicrous.
Well,
So, we're educating children. We're not having parties here.
we'll pick our fights.
Yes,
For
we will.
clarification, what Mrs. Bloom is saying, the initial, I hope everyone's aware of the pilot down at the National Lead site, which is called The Point. They're going to give $19 million towards the education process. And if it exceeds 600 students coming out of that, they'll give an extra $1 million, so that'll be $20 million. The factor is, if we have to build a facility, the staffing will not, that money that's generated from that will not support the staffing in years to come. So
Yeah, well-
it's going to affect overcrowding in the future. It's
20
going to-
million is 20 million better than nothing, but you have to understand, when we put addition onto this high school, it was 48 million, and that was in 2005 dollars. So, 20 million may build you a school, but you don't staff it, you don't put technology in
Right,
it.
the staffing issue is
For books, yeah.
the issue it's going to hurt the district
Yep.
because of the fact of it's going to hurt because where's the money going to come from to provide the staffing, to provide the classroom space, to provide everything the students are going to need in the future?
Well, we wouldn't be able to fund it if we didn't have a pilot program. It would be difficult to fund it. And then with a pilot program, it's just exactly.
No, I understand, it's a caveat to that, but the real issue is that as the taxpayers in this town, even one council member had mentioned to us when we had the meeting there, that a pilot program is not good on a residential system to benefit the students in education.
But they'll vote for it.
But they voted yes.
And they
Yes.
voted yes for it, yes.
Okay. Well, I don't have a Facebook account, so if anybody sees a post, please send it to me.
And I think
My
also
name will be there.
the 20 million is not going to be handed to us in a lump sum. It's going to be 20 million over
It's-
25 years in drips and drabs. We can't build a school with
Mrs.
that.
Bloom,
That's
if you think
correct.
we're going to see any of that 20 million,
yeah.
okay,
Hey,
you're,
listen, I'm the eternal optimist.
okay, well,
There was no caveat, it's being handed to the board at
Right.
all.
Yeah. The builder is going to give it to the borough.
my
whether or not they
understanding
give
at
it
the
to us is a
last
whole
meeting
other
we went
thing.
to, that the council attorney told us there was no legal mechanism in which
They
the
could.
council to transfer money to us. And I said, what?
But our attorney disagreed.
Yeah, so you can't make this stuff up.
No.
It'll be for good TV anyway. So. All right, where are we at? Everybody's done?
I got
Oh,
Oh, one
Okay.
thing under discussion.
yes, Mr. Broussard.
Mr. DeAndrea, have you, or is it up to each individual to schedule the rooms for the Atlantic City School Board Association convention?
I did it as a block at Tropicana.
That's already completed?
It's been processed, but the board can make changes at any time.
Okay, I didn't know that, because I had received a letter from the New Jersey School Board Association, an email stating that, it's open for scheduling. I don't know if you had scheduled it, but evidently you did that.
It's all been done.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sayak.
Two items for discussion. Every year, the Sayreville Education Association holds an SEA Gala where they recognize the Teachers of the Year and the ESPs of the Year and also the retirees. And for the past several years I've gone, whenever I'm in town and I'm not traveling, I've gone to this event, and I pay my $55 because I want the opportunity to recognize our retirees and our Teachers of the Year and our ESPs of the Year. And so I did the same thing this year, and 3 or 4 days prior to the event, I received an email from the corresponding secretary of the SEA that says, "I'm sorry to have to relay this, but Ken Veers has requested that no Board of Ed members be included in the SEA Gala next week." So I read this email, and it was one of those emails where you sit back and you say, okay, reply, and then you hit delete, and you hit reply, and you hit delete, and I said, no, I need to step away. So I thought about this, and I thought about probably the number one concern that I hear from staff members throughout the district of morale. You know, we need to improve morale. So I'm trying to grapple with, okay, I'm willing to spend $55 out of my own pocket to go to an event to recognize our ESPs and our Teachers of the Year and our retirees because what they earned was worthy of recognition, and I'm told you're not welcome. And I've never felt unwelcome in any event or any aspect of the district. And as I thought about the morale issue, you know, I thought about how far we as a district have changed. And I thought back to a time, and Mrs. Bloom will remember this, not because she was a board member, but because she was a teacher. And this goes back to 2001. There was a teacher at the high school here. We'll call him Bob. And Bob came to us later in his career. I can't remember if it was alternate route or he taught at a Catholic school, but he came here later in his career. And he taught here for a few years. He earned tenure. And then all of a sudden, Bob received a very bad medical diagnosis. And Bob made a decision at that point that he was going to fight and he was going to teach. And he taught in this district all through the 2001-2000 school year, at times coming to work in a wheelchair because he couldn't navigate this building. But he wanted to be here with our kids. He wanted to be here with his colleagues. And I came to the high school to a pep rally, and he was there on the track in a wheelchair with balloons, blue and gray on the wheelchair and streamers, and I went up to him and I said, boy, you are the picture of school spirit. And he looked at me and he said to me, our kids did this for me. And later on that year, it was March or April, I was in this building for some reason, and there was I don't know, a faculty meeting or some event. And I got called to this event, and I sat down in the back, and Mr. Brown was running this event, and he called Bob up, and he recognized Bob, and he presented what had to be around $2,000 to him that was raised by the faculty in this building. And teachers told me at that time that they were throwing, you know, $20 bills in the envelope to support this man in his time of need. And I saw that, and I came back to the board, because I was there, I saw that, and I came back to the board and I shared the story. And the board at that time passed a collection and put $20 each in an envelope, and we presented it to Bob a week later. When I went to the high school, I think he thought he was getting fired when we called him in with Mr. Brown, but instead we presented him an envelope. And over Memorial Day that year, Bob lost his battle. And today, the family still gives a scholarship in his memory to a deserving high school senior because of the memories that he had in this school district and the time that he had here and the relationships that he developed. And I share that story because when we talk about morale, it's a team effort. You know, it wasn't just the board president or it wasn't just the superintendent. That was a story that involved students, that involved faculty, that involved the high school principal, that involved the board, that created a long-lasting piece of goodwill for this district. So I thought about, okay, well, what do we do about this particular event? And I said, well, what's the problem? And what I concluded was, I think the problem is that we're relying on an external entity to recognize our Teachers of the Year and our ESPs of the Year and our retirees. And while we do it at a board meeting, it's not the same as having an opportunity to really have a personal award opportunity with them. So what I would like to suggest, I called Dr. Labby on this, and I said, you know, let's have the board take our retirees and our ESPs and our Teachers of the Year out to lunch, and let's recognize them maybe on one of the half days. And Dr. Labby actually came up with a better idea. He said one of the things he's been looking to do is mirror what we currently do as a high school awards night and do a staff awards and recognition night, so that we can not only recognize the teachers of the year and the ESPs of the year and the retirees, but we can also recognize our principals, we can recognize our administrators who may be retiring, and it's another opportunity to provide recognition for our people and for our team, and to help foster that morale. It is not intended to be an event that competes with the SEA Gala. I think what Dr. Labby is envisioning is very different than the SEA Gala. And certainly, if invited to attend next year, I would go to the SEA Gala because I think it's important. But I think it puts the recognition of our people back in our hands, and is a great opportunity for us to kind of create that morale and that goodwill. So I would like to propose that for next year, we begin planning in the spring of 2017 an event to mirror the high school awards ceremony to recognize our staff.
I would agree wholeheartedly with that, absolutely. Now, did anyone else get that email? Ms. Bloom, did?
No, I did not get that email. I had a personal conversation with the corresponding secretary and informed her that I was attending as a retiree and as past president of the association. And so I handed my check in and I attended. My name wasn't on any list, but I was there.
Well, it's unfortunate.
And look, there's nothing that we can do about that.
No,
we can only
you're right.
control the piece that's within us, and I think
but I
the
think
opportunity that's generated here is we've got to take the opportunity to recognize our people.
I think it's important to say, when it comes to the SEA, I know firsthand that it's an organization with many, many, many professionals. Many of them, or a good number of them, have educated, mentored, and were role models for my 3 children. 3 that have been very successful for the things and the adults they came in contact with in this very building. So please don't let what I would call poor leadership at the top to tarnish
Fully agree.
an institution that has done extremely well and is continuing to do extremely well and consists of a bunch of professionals. And let's just keep that in perspective. That's one individual with a methodology and a mentality that's foreign to me. So I hope that you've recovered.
No, like I said, I've definitely recovered, but I'd like to hear from the board as to, whether or not the board supports this.
Oh, absolutely.
this event.
I mean, absolutely.
Well, I haven't heard from everyone. That's
Okay.
my-
Any opportunity we can to give more teachers recognition, I'm 100% for, so.
Terrific idea. Terrific.
Yes.
Okay. Well said. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Okay.
I got another item. I'm not done yet.
Oh,
Don't let the hour bother you.
no.
You had mentioned before Vision 2030.
Yes, sir.
And you and I have talked about Vision 2030. And you mentioned the report card, and that being Vision 2030. And probably, that is closest to the Vision 2030 piece because it is so transformative. But what I found equally as transformative about the report card was the board discussion that generated from it. And you hit that. You said, look, we're not here discussing dirt. We're having an educational conversation, and we're providing valid feedback about the concerns that we have. And not concerns, but also suggestions. So we had talked, Mr. McEnon, you and I, about the Vision 2030 concept, and I had shared with the board probably a year and a half ago a plan to implement Vision 2030 from the board perspective. And then the board decided to change presidents, and that plan kind of got shelved. And I know you wanted me to lead it from a committee, but it's hard to drive transformational change from one committee. This is an initiative that takes the full board. So I thought about how can we roll this forward and get the full board engaged. So here is what I came up with. And I'm not looking for a decision on this tonight. I'm looking just to pass this out and have the board take a look at it. There's 2 more. What I've done is I've taken from the Vision 2030 plan, which Dr. Labby saw about a year ago, and I've tried to break it down to say, look, rather than this 2030 plan being so large and just so big, let's see if we can break this down to a few small actions that members of the board can team up in committees in an attempt to move us forward. So what I've come up with are 6 items from that plan. Just to give you an idea for the members of the public, The Board of Education will identify and implement strategies to utilize the role of the Student Council representative to the Board of Education within its meeting and committee structure. The goal is to maximize the educational value of the experience for the student representative and enhance the opportunity for student input. How can we do that better? And that would be something that would be driven by the board to come up with ways that we would be able to do that better. The Board of Education will host joint and/or separate meetings with college admissions officers, business leaders, military representatives to gain a better understanding of their expectations of current and future high school graduates. Another example of a possible goal. Now, these are 6 potential board goals. I'm not suggesting that the board run off and adopt all 6 and start moving on all 6. It's too much. What I'm suggesting is that the board consider these and look at narrowing it down to 3. And the reason I'm suggesting 3 is because there's 9 of us, and 9 is very easily divisible by 3, and we can break that off very easily. Now, if you're looking at this and you say, well, wait a minute, there's a goal, Kevin, you're missing something. That's fine. Feel free to email me. Give me another goal that you think is more important than any of these 6 that meet the criteria of thinking long range about our students, meet the criteria of being within the purview of the board, and a data-driven goal. And at our next meeting, we can discuss it. So all I'm looking for from the board for the next meeting is A, do we want to become a Vision 2030 board? Is this something, is the meeting that we had tonight a meeting that we don't want to have as an exception? We want it to be a rule? And do we want to start tackling some of these issues or others? And if so, bring your top 3 priorities to the next meeting, and we'll see if we can agree on a board as what those top 3 priorities are.
I like it. I mean, these are easy to implement, and I like it. So just ask the board to review these, and let's have another educational discussion at our June 28th meeting. Good on you, Ms. Sack. I like it. Okay. Very good.
That's all I have.
That's all?
That's all.
Okay.
Light night.
If there's no other discussion, I'd like to open up for the
Mr.
public.
McEnroe?
Yes.
I need to ask for a switch on that meeting if possible.
What meeting?
On the 14th, Finance is meeting first, and then Building and Grounds is meeting at 6. If it would be not in a position on the Finance Committee to meet at 6, because I have to be at my husband's installation as president of the Lions, and I don't want to miss the meeting because Kevin won't be there, and it'll just be myself and Tom, so.
Who's the committee, Dan?
Mr. Bashad.
Bashad.
Mr. Balka.
Okay.
I can't make 6.
Do we postpone then,
I'm on
Mr.
both
Bashada?
committees. I'm on both
Shall we,
committees.
well,
It
do you
doesn't
want to
matter.
postpone then Building and Grounds? Because it'll be just you.
If you want to postpone it, that's fine. It's up-
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
So Kevin can make it too, maybe.
Yeah, then Kevin can.
Yeah, and I think
Okay.
I'm back on Wednesday. I mean, if you want to do Wednesday, I can
Okay.
probably do Wednesday at 4 o'clock.
We'll do it, I don't have my little book in front of me.
Okay, I'll leave
so
it up to you
we'll-
adults to
we'll
figure it
email.
out. Gotcha.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
That works.
If not, I'd like to open up for the public. If any business may come before this board, please come up, state your name and address for the record. Anyone from the public wish to speak? Nobody. Okay, then I'll close the public portion and take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.